Your backlog is anything that could possibly compete for your time. And so most of us just let this stuff swim in our head all day long, and it just haunts our subconscious. It floats up at 3 a.m. and wakes us up. It hits us at 6 a.m. when we feel like we need to start working. It hits us at noon when we skip lunch and we just work over our keyboard again. Our brain was never intended to be a storage device.
Good day, everybody. Chris G here, Hard Hat CEO. And yes, it's time for another episode. And guess what? That rhymed. All right, that's good. Anyway, so it's time today. We're going to talk about some time and how we affect people. And it's one thing the good Lord never lets you get back. So once it's gone, it's gone. And to help me do that, I got Andrew Hartman all the way from Orange County, California. Andrew, how you doing today?
Hey, Chris, I'm doing good. Really excited for this conversation.
Well, I'm excited too. I want to hear your story about how you decided to make a business out of Father Time, and how's that work out for you?
Sure. Began in my story began, I should say, in my mid-20s. Showed up in a role where I had 12 clients I was responsible for projects I was leading for them, and suddenly realized I had more to do than time to do it. And I was utterly overwhelmed. Like a lot of people, I grew up, had a great family, had a great education. They taught me how to use a to-do list. They taught me how to use a calendar. And I suddenly realized when I was overwhelmed, like, wow, these tools don't solve the problems that I have right now. So, I was a grinder, probably like a lot of people listening to this show. I was a grinder. I was going to make things happen. People asked me to do things. You and I were talking before, Chris. I spent summers on a farm in Kansas. I knew how to work hard. I knew how to make things happen.
So before your listeners decide, California, I need to listen to him. This little boy's from the Midwest. He knows all about it over here, so that's all good.
There we go. Walking the bean. Imagine a 12-year-old me with a little bit more hair walking the bean fields and pulling weeds. That was my life. So yeah, I knew how to work hard, and when you know how to work hard, you tend to make things happen. And when you make things happen, people tend to give you more stuff. And so if you're overwhelmed, you tend to feel more overwhelmed because there's just more stuff coming at you. And that was my story. Overwhelm is tough because you typically get overwhelmed because you care, because you want to do great work. You just keep saying yes. Opportunity comes up, you say yes because you think it's going to be a good opportunity for you. Person walks in your office, asks you to do something, you say yes because you care about that relationship. You want to support them. You want to be helpful, or a client's asking, and that was me. I just kept saying yes and found myself utterly overwhelmed. The first thing it came for was my health. Yeah, I would wake up middle of the night, cold sweat, worried about something. Write it down on the Post-it note next to my bed. Wake up the next morning, realize I wrote chicken scratch, couldn't even read it anyways. I mentioned these kind of hot flashes that would hit me. I could feel my senses cooking. And one morning I woke up and my sense of smell was just gone. And for 6 months, Chris, decade before COVID, for 6 months, I didn't have a sense of smell. 3 months in, I didn't actually believe it was going to come back. I thought I was permanently broken. And what's amazing, I work with a lot of people that are coming from overwhelm. You'll hear unending migraine headaches, unending irritable bowel syndrome, hypertension. One of my clients had Bell's palsy before we started working together, where half his face was numb as a function of stress. Stress is the yellow flashing light of your life to say, this is not working. We got to figure something else out. And it comes for our health. So, that was me. And the sad part was I didn't know how to change. And so I just kept going. It didn't cause me to change.
It didn't dawn on you the stress was?
Well, I knew it was stress, but I mean, you might feel this, Chris. I looked around, I'm like, I don't know what else to do. Like everybody else is stressed. Like this is the water that we swim in. This is the air that we breathe. Just normal.
Yeah.
And hustle culture tells us this, if you want to be successful, you must grind. That is the gear that you must be in. And so I just thought, well, this is what adult life is. This is par for the course, I guess. And next thing it came for, so it hit my health. Next thing it came for was my relationships. I had 2 little ones, a wife, would come home. My son, Luke, loved to play trains. We had this train set in the middle of our living room, this little, very cool wooden train set someone had given us. He'd want me to get down on the floor with him. I'd be there with him. And we've been playing trains, and I'm physically there on the floor with him. But in the back of my mind, I am gone.
Somewhere else. Yeah.
I'm thinking about emails. I'm thinking about projects. I'm thinking about, as soon as he goes to bed, I'm opening up my laptop again, and I'm just going to keep working. I'd open up my laptop. my wife would be going to bed. She'd give me that look like, we're doing this again. And I would shrug my shoulders because I didn't know what to do. I cared about my results. I cared about the relationships in my life, and I didn't know what to do besides grind. The work was the work. I had to get the work done. And again, like we have this kind of American mentality of we just got to do the work at all costs. And I was feeling the cost. It was coming from my health. It was coming from my relationships. Eventually, it came from my results too. I was in software. I worked in an early stage software company. We had taken a company from zero to 2 million ARR, which is really hard to do. It's quite a grind. And we had shipped a large project. I knew that project was really taking a toll on me. And I just kept telling myself, I just got to get past this project. I just got to get past this project. Then it'll be different, which is a total lie. I was telling myself.
No, never. But yeah, but it keeps you going.
Yeah, we say all these things. I just got to get past this quarter. I just got to get past this year, whatever. I just got to get to that vacation. And what we realize is that if we don't change our habits, when we get past this quarter, this project, this vacation, we're still the same person. We're going to do the same things over again because we have developed a certain way of approaching time. So we ship a massive project to this client. A couple of days later, and I thought we were done. I thought I could finally take a break. A couple of days later, that client reaches out and asks for the next major thing, and my brain just snapped. In a moment, snapped, and I burnt out. And my brain said, we're done. I am subtracting all motivation. You no longer get any dopamine from this. I don't know what we're going to do differently, but we're going to have to do something differently. You see, a burnout, Chris, is no different than a financial bankruptcy. In a financial bankruptcy, we become insolvent. We can no longer maintain ongoing operations, and the court comes in and reorganizes us to help us become solvent. When we burn out emotionally, your brain is doing the same thing. Your brain is saying, stop the machines. We're not doing this anymore, but your brain doesn't know how to fix it. So all your brain does is subtract the motivation and say, you've got to try something different. You've got to figure it out, but you got to try something different. And for most people, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, they really answer the question. Then, what happens? I mean, is it depression or is it just a?
So you no longer have the motivation to do the same things you did before. And so if you think about it, like we are dopamine seeking machines. We take action, we get a result, we get a little dopamine hit. You know, we've all done it where we're halfway into the day and we go back and we create our to-do list for the beginning of the day and start checking things off just so we can
feel better. Yeah.
You don't get anything from that. Your brain literally subtracts that motivation. So it feels a little bit like depression. It feels a little bit like your brain is almost allergic to stress. Your brain's like, it's like touching a stove. It's almost like trauma. Like your brain knows if I go that direction, it's going to hurt me. And so you don't drop from 105% to 95%. You drop from 105% to 50%, or you check out of the game, you quit your job. And these aren't things that a vacation solves. I mean, these are really challenging issues.
They're deep.
So they're very deep. And what's tragic, Chris, 76% of knowledge workers, people that get paid for the decisions they make between their ears, 76%, Gallup says, will burn out in the next 12 months, which means 3 out of 4 people listening to this podcast are experiencing some early sign of burnout where they're feeling the things that I'm describing that I'm feeling. And this is just where we are. Like this is the state of things, which is so tragic. And that's where I was. I just had no vision that it could be different. And so I'll pause. I've been talking a lot. I'll tell you what I did next, but I can pause there if you have.
Well, I was going to say, what is the first step? Mindset, changing how you think about things.
So yeah. So a couple for me, what I was young and naive enough to say, I was in my late 30s, and I said, I cared about my contribution. What took me to burnout was caring, was yes to results, yes to relationships, yes to opportunity. I wasn't going to change the fact that I wanted to contribute. I wanted to make a meaningful impact in the things that I was focused on, and I wanted to be successful. But I said, I have got to figure out a way to do that from a place of peace and not stress. I have got to find another fuel besides stress, fear, and anxiety. That was the move. And so again, I didn't know a single person doing that. And I was naive enough to start, but I was a builder. I knew how to build things. So I just made myself the customer. And I every week was making a tiny little adjustment. Probably read every book you can imagine on time management, Chris. And it took me 5 years, hundreds of iterations, but I absolutely solved it. I developed a very simple way to get exceptional results from a place of peace and not stress. And I'm happy to get into the details on that, but it was a revolution. And I pushed it to my team because I didn't want them to, I'm like, you can't mess this up for me. I figured this out. You guys got to run this way as well. It worked for them. I went to work at other companies, installed it there, it worked there. They went to other companies. They would ask me to come coach or train there. And I realized, like, this is not an Andrew Hartman issue. This is how time works. This is a time issue. And that's what began us on this path now to where this is what we do with all of our time with TimeBoss, is helping people get results that they want with an experience of peace and not stress. And so I'm happy to share all the details. We can jump into it, whatever's helpful for you.
Well, before we get into TimeBoss, which is on my list for sure, I believe we're going to be talking about how time relates to values, as well as I think you call it urgency. I guess urgency management to some extent.
Yeah.
I was more interested in how time and values, I guess it's where you value the time and you but how's that all work together versus say urgency when it comes to comparison? Well,
so if we look in arrears, time, just like our credit card statement, is transactional. The only difference between time and our credit card statement is we might be able to return things on our credit card statement that we regret, but we can't on time. And so if I were to look at your week last week, Chris, in the same way if I were to look at your bank account, I would know a lot about you. I would know a lot about what you value. Now, it may not necessarily be that you value the things that you focused on, but it may show me that you value showing up for people, or you value saying yes to people, or you value being available. There could be all kinds of things that we learn from that. And so, one of my thesis is that our calendar is the real-time expression of our goals and values. And if that's true in arrears, then I want to do the work to make that true on a go-forward basis. The whole idea of TimeBoss is this: I am the boss of my future self. My future self is 100% subservient to the planning or lack of planning I do on their behalf. And so I want to be a cause in the matter, and I want to say, what are my goals and values, and how do I express those into the coming week so I actually live out who I want to be, not in next week and look back and feel regret for all the things I didn't do. I want to be a cause in the matter.
Give me an example.
So I want to, right now I'm writing a book for TimeBoss.
Okay.
And if I don't block time into my week for writing that book, significant amounts of time, it's not going to happen. Because urgent and important items are going to come crashing at me. Clients are going to have needs. My inbox is going to full of email. My team's going to have requests of me. My kids are going to need stuff. I have to do the work on the front end to set up my future self to be able to focus. And so an example, Monday morning, I tied up all my loose ends so that from 8 to noon, I could only write. I went to a Starbucks and I just wrote. That's it. And so, but I set myself up where I could see that I could say yes to that and still be successful across all my other roles, responsibilities, and obligations. I have a way of operating that makes me believe that there isn't actually enough time for me to be fully present and focus on the thing in front of me, even in a chaotic environment where things are coming at me all the time. And that's really what we, go ahead.
No, well, in college, I took that class 101 where, time management and so forth. And
yeah.
So what they taught me was, I took my semester and I divided it up, and I love counting down, but basically I set my lunch time, I set study hour time, I set my classes, obviously the things that you could not get away from or didn't want to get away from. And then everything else kind of filled in the gaps, but you had the time already set aside for the things that were most important to you. And then,
exactly right.
Is that very similar to what we're talking about here?
Very similar, yeah. So we have lost that art as a society. You were well taught in college.
Okay.
And what we need, so the way that you describe that, as you were talking, Chris, is you're essentially treating your time like cash. Your time is a cash budget. And most people treat their time like credit, where they will say yes to things whether they know that they can do it or not. And, we've all had the experience. I walked into Costco in my mid-20s, cash in hand. I knew the TV I was going to buy, right? And then I walk around the corner and you see that TV that's tens of inches bigger than the one you were going to buy. And unfortunately, you have this handy little card in your wallet that allows you to walk out with that big TV. I bought it on credit. And Andrew, who said yes in that moment, felt great. Andrew, who got the credit card statement a month later, was pretty angry about that, right? Because why do we make a good decision? Now, I paid out that TV. We've all bought stuff on credit. That's fine. We can do that from time to time. Sometimes we say yes to things we don't know if we have time, and we can hurry up and we can get caught up. But for the average person, they are saying yes ongoing without any semblance if they have time or not. And it's just like saying yes to only paying with credit. Eventually, you are just making interest payments trying to keep your head above water. And it's the same. The same is true with time. And so what we have to do, our calendar has to become an expression of our budget. Like, just like you said, there's time that must go to studying. I am pre-committing that time to studying. And when that time comes up, I'm going to study. It truly is that simple. Just having a systematic way where we can represent our goals and values on our calendar. And then what we can talk about, you got to plan for reality because it's never going to go the exact way you think it's going to go. But that is the move. That is what allows people to get exceptional results from a place of peace and not stress, but they've got to treat their time like cash and not credit.
Well, before we do that, then is the first thing to do is kind of establish your values or what you consider your valuable, like family time, dinner time, whatever it is, going to church. And then, so you set your, I guess, non-negotiables, the times you got to have, and you set those times in your calendar for the, do you recommend weekly, monthly, yearly, or all the above?
It just depends on the rhythm. Yeah. So, some things happen daily, some things happen weekly, some things happen monthly. I think you gotta block them in there.
But the things that are important to you, basically, is what you're valuing, and make sure you have the time for it. Yeah.
The value. So I encourage people to put recurring tasks on their calendar for those things that they value, because the values, you stop thinking about it. So if I say, as a rule, I'm going to be home for dinner at 6 o'clock, no matter what. Now, will I do that every day? No, but I'm going to anchor my intention that I want to be home for dinner at 6 o'clock. And if I'm not, I'm going to negotiate with my wife and I'm going to say, hey, honey, I don't think I'm going to be able to do Wednesday at 6. Could we eat a little bit later? Or would you be open to me not being there Wednesday at 6? But by putting it on my calendar, one, I stop thinking about it. My calendar now holds that commitment. So I don't have to think about it anymore. My calendar is going to guide my day. So so one, I'm reducing the cognitive load of my life by getting that stuff to my calendar. And two, just like you did, Chris, in college, I'm just pre-budgeting for the things I value. I'm saying that time is no longer available. That time has already been allocated to family. I'm not going to spend it on something else.
Well, I still do that even today on my calendar. It's a lot easier with my phone. You walk around and get it pre-programmed. And this is going on my almost third year of podcasting. If I didn't set time aside just to do podcasts, I knew I wouldn't do it. Yeah, I'd forget, or it's like not today type thing. So it all kind of same concept. You just got to dedicate yourself to what's important to you. Yeah, and make sure you follow through with it.
And what you said so critical, Chris. You can't decide in the moment. This is that idea of TimeBoss. It's often the average person is swapping between a boss employee all day long, like just swimming through trade-offs of like, what should I work on next? What should I work on next? And my suggestion is everybody needs a weekly planning meeting habit where you put on that TimeBoss hat and say, in light of my goals and values, what should I do over the next 7-day period, and represent that in my calendar just like you do. So that when that time comes up, the time has already been set aside. I'm never going to do the not urgent, important thing if I feel like the world is on fire. I'm always going to focus on the fire first. So I've got to create systems that set me up to focus and be present to one thing at a time. And I think planning your week ahead of time is the way to do that.
Now we're going to talk about systems and so forth, but what's your definition of time mastery? When do you ever get there? Do you feel like you're mastering time now? To a point where you feel
I feel like it's an infinite exponential, which means you can always get better at it. And yes, so right now, Chris, you and I are recording this podcast. There are so many significant things in my world that feel important to me. Just like you have so many significant things that feel important to you.
Sure.
I have an emotional relationship with my to-do list because I know if I don't get those things done, it's going to hurt me or it's going to hurt someone that I care about. So that's really important to me. So I am so committed. I have just 3 tools. I'm so committed to my calendar, to my backlog, and my parking lot. Just those 3 tools, that one of those 3 tools holds everything in my world, which allows me to be fully present with you right now. I think time mastery is the ability to choose what I pay attention to with peace, freedom, and clarity, not stress, fear, and anxiety. So right now, I can just be present to you, knowing that the system holds all the details, knowing as soon as we get off this call, there's going to be something else for me, which is fine. But right now I can just be present to just you because this is the thing that I've said yes to and I can be here for you. So that's what I think time mastery is when you can be fully present to a thing, get the results you want from a place of peace and not stress.
Is your calendar one of the systems you consider?
Yeah,
or
correct. Yep.
Is there more than one other than the calendar?
There's three. So there's the calendar.
So that's the parking lot you're talking about? Okay, that's what.
Yep.
Okay.
Calendar, backlog, and parking lot. So I can explain each of those in
Sure.
turn if that's helpful. Yeah. So I think your calendar should be your to-do list for anyone listening. So we were told in high school that you have a to-do list for the items you need to get done, and you have a calendar for commitments when someone else is showing up. You were actually trained better than this, Chris. You were trained to put your priorities on your calendar, which is, I think, the move.
Yeah.
What we have to do is combine those together, because every task on our to-do list wants time, and our calendar is our expression of our time. And if we want to treat our time like cash, not credit, only say yes to things that we actually have time to say yes to, then our calendar needs to become our to-do list. So my encouragement to people is anything you've already said yes to needs to be on your calendar. If you, a recurring task, we've already established recurring tasks. I want to be home for dinner. I want to get a workout in. I want to do podcasting. I want to write the book. Those need to be on your calendar. So calendar needs to become the to-do list. Your backlog is anything that could possibly compete for your time. And so most of us just let this stuff swim in our head all day long, and it just haunts our subconscious. It floats up at 3 a.m. and wakes us up. It hits us at 6 a.m. when we feel like we need to start working. It hits us at noon when we skip lunch. We just work over our keyboard again.
Yeah.
Things that we're just trying to keep in our head. Our brain was never intended to be a storage device. It's a decision machine. It's an execution machine. And so you need to have the backlog is just a master to-do list. You need to have a master to-do list that you trust, that you're going to constantly go back to, that's going to hold anything that competes for your time. But I can only be present to you, Chris, because the system is holding all the details, not my brain. I don't have these things bubbling up where my subconscious starts pushing stress and fear so I don't forget. The reason why our body pushes stress and fear and anxiety is because it's looking at our time like a math problem. And it says, I see all these things that are in your subconscious, and I don't think we have enough time.
There's not enough.
So I'm going to stress you out so that you start working. You better start shoveling faster because there's not enough. And so what the systems do, what my calendar does, and what the backlog does is it gets that stuff out of my head, and I trust that there's going to be enough time. Now, I'll explain in a second. There's a couple habits that I think are really critical in this process, but the backlog at least holds it so my brain doesn't have to. I can look at the backlog and I can see everything there that's going to compete for my time. The parking lot, the third tool, is the way that I deal with urgent and important items that are crashing into my day-to-day. So let's say you and I are talking right now, Chris, and let's say I get a text message from a buddy and he says, hey, I need that report. I need that TimeBoss report by end of day today. I would write down on my parking lot, TimeBoss report to buddy by end of the day. And I close that loop as fast as I can so I can stay present to you. So parking lot is not dissimilar to if you're in a meeting with someone, and let's say the goal of your meeting is you're doing construction management. The goal of your meeting is to finalize the plan. And someone's like, hey, I think our PTO policy sucks. You're like, okay, I hear that. Thank you. Let's put that in a parking lot. And if we have time at the end of the meeting, we'll talk about that. But right now we're talking about our project management plans.
So you're kind of like the back burner.
Yeah.
Maybe. Still need to be warm. You don't want to turn it off, but you're not quite ready to focus on that.
The reason why we worry about things again. So my buddy asked me for that report, let's say.
Yeah.
I would stress about that because I'm afraid if I don't work on it, it's going to hurt my relationship with him, and I care about my relationship with him, or even more if it's a client or someone paying you money, right? Like we get emotionally connected. The goal of the parking lot is to park that item so I don't spin up all those emotions. And as we'll talk about with our calendar, one of the things I recommend setting up in your calendar is that I think everyone should have 10 to 40% of their day budgeted for unknown items, for the chaos of life that's coming. And so if that's true, let's say if I have 10 to 40% of my day essentially available as buffer, I call it whirlwind in the TimeBoss model because it kind of feels like a whirlwind. When I write that thing down in my parking lot and I get to that whirlwind time, I'm just going to work the parking lot. So I've literally budgeted for the unknown. I've budgeted to be available to urgent and important items I know are going to come, which in turn, knowing that there's budgeted time for that later in the day, it allows me to be present right now because I know that there's enough time for me to actually focus on my actual priority. And so it's the interplay of those two things that really help people focus.
Does the backlog and the parking lot have priorities? Do you set priorities to them?
Correct. Yeah. So parking lot for sure. Like when you hit whirlwind time, like I would work that thing in order. So the backlog is a great question, Chris. So my encouragement with people is that they would prioritize and schedule their backlog during a weekly planning meeting. So on a weekly basis. So for me, I plan out my week on Friday mornings at 6 a.m. at the Quail Hill Starbucks here in Orange County, California. every Friday, and I'm planning for the following week. And so what I'm doing is I'm going to my backlog, and we have a very specific process in TimeBoss. It's a very simple agenda you can run through. I can share more about that later if helpful. But the goal of that time is to really ask the question, in light of all the things that could compete for my time next week, with the time that I have, what should I actually work on? And that's when you go through prioritization. I encourage people to do a breakdown process where they create very actionable next steps that they can take on anything they're prioritizing. And then you map that into your calendar. And then I think the most important step, no one is ever going to have enough time for everything in their backlog. The whole reason why the backlog exists is because we have more than the time to do it. But we have to deal with the items that don't fit, Chris. So for example, let's say I can schedule 25 hours of priorities next week, or 30 hours, whatever the number is. Sure. But I feel like I need to schedule 40. Like I look at my list and I'm like, oh, I feel like I need to do 10 hours more than what I'm doing. The time to deal with those feelings is in your weekly planning meeting. And all kinds of strategies present themselves. You can defer it. If maybe you could look at those items and be like, you know what, we'll be okay. We can wait a week and come back to them. Or maybe you need to start delegating. Maybe you have said yes to things.
That's my next question. Delegation.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But here's the value of that, Chris. Yeah. In the planning meeting, the constraint that's important is me deciding how much of my life I'm willing to give to work. So for example, let's say I decide, so right now with TimeBoss, I choose to give 50 hours a week to TimeBoss. That's my choice. And I treat that as a rule that can have exceptions, but for the most part, that's a rule. What that does then is it forces me to make decisions with my time. So I could just keep working. And that's what I used to do. I used to say yes. When I was working those crazy hours and burning out, I was saying yes to so many things I should have said no to that I had no business doing, but I had no constraint on my time to force me to delegate. So for a number of people, especially a lot of people listening to this podcast, I would imagine, if you're bumping up against your capacity, you should start looking for what are the things that I and only I can do that I need to keep to my calendar, and what can someone else do 70% as well as me, and I need to delegate that. And for a lot of people, they feel that 70% number and they're like, oh my gosh, that is a rough number. Like, we're not going to get a good deliverable if I delegate something at 70%. But John Maxwell has a brilliant system for this. It's called 10-80-10. And have you heard of the system, Chris?
No, but I'm thinking the one in my own mind. You gotta just decide that is it that important to do it exactly the way you have to do it, or is it just valuable that it got done, and it's okay.
It depends, right? It depends on if that's going to a client.
I guess it depends on what it is. I'm sure.
Yeah, it depends on what it is. So the 10-80-10 model is very resourceful for people, I think. This, again, John Maxwell study, Dan Martell and Buy Back Your Time also talked about this. And the idea is this: if you have a task, let's say it's a 10-hour task, big task that I'm trying to get off my plate. I'm going to spend 10% of that task setting the person up for success. So maybe I'm writing a document, maybe I'm meeting with them to tell them my expectations, maybe I'm making a video for them to show them how to do it. Then I'm expecting them to do 80% of that work. So the 10 is 10% on the front end, 80 is them doing 80% of that work. Maybe you're checking in, you can do whatever you want.
Sure.
And the last 10, this is why people don't like to delegate, or last time they delegated, it didn't go well. And they tell themselves, if I want something done right, I got to do it myself, or whatever we tell ourselves,
Right.
The last 10% is where you come back in with that person and you inspect what you expect. And you're really getting into that deliverable and said, hey, here are the 5 things you did really well. Here are the 3 things that we have got to fix to get this up to speed where we could actually give this to a client. And in a 10-hour task, that's another hour on the back end. So when we delegate, we're not throwing something over the fence and hope it gets done. We are an active member of that process for 2 reasons. 1, we want to get the deliverable that we want, that whatever that thing is. 2, we want to develop our people. The reason why we don't want to delegate to people is because they have not yet had the experience. They haven't been hit with the sticks. They haven't had the education. They haven't had the reps to be good at whatever that task is. And so we must afford them the opportunity, just like someone else did to us, but we must be involved in that process. It isn't just trial by fire, throw them in the deep end and you get that 70% deliverable back and you say, that was terrible, I never want to do that again. You're involved with the process to develop that person, get a deliverable you want, and develop that person so the next time you delegate to them, they're doing it at 75% or 80% or 95%.
The last part of the 10 doesn't, they know what you're expecting.
Yeah.
They know your expectation, and you've got the right person.
Yes.
It becomes maybe even 5% or less. It depends on.
You're exactly right, Chris. But
you look it over, that looks good to me.
Exactly. The principle we come back to is I only got there because I ran a weekly planning meeting where I realized that there's not enough time for everything in my backlog and I must delegate. So if we just allow ourselves to bleed time, we will keep things. We'll say, I'll just do it. Or if we don't run a weekly planning meeting, we typically discover maybe Tuesday at 5 o'clock, like, oh, shoot, I didn't get to that. I'm going to work late again tonight. The value of a weekly planning meeting is it gets us ahead of that planning process where we actually have time to delegate. We have time to get that other person involved. We have time to get it over to them where we don't have to be the one to do it. So I'm such a believer in that weekly planning meeting process. And again, meticulously working through the items that we feel stressed about. If you go into your week worried about a bunch of items you don't have time to get to anyways, I call them the children you're not feeding. You're just going to feel fear and anxiety all week long. But if you can run a weekly planning meeting and you meticulously deal with those items, okay, we're deferring that one, we're delegating that one, okay, we're just not doing that one, we're getting rid of that strategy, whatever you have to do, you give yourself emotional freedom to show up next week and just do exceptional work, fully present to the thing in front of you. But it only happens, in my opinion, if you run that weekly planning meeting. I think that's a critical step.
That weekly planning meeting, is that just with you or with your team?
So it's optional. I run one with myself, and then I run one with an additional one with my team. So with myself is where I'm really working through what are the things that I and only I can do. And then anything that doesn't fit, I'm pushing down into my team. And then my team is taking those items and my team is running that exact same process. Because all of us, it's cash. Every organization only has so much cash. And so as a senior leader, often what happens, I see this all the time in companies, senior leaders decide they're going to get their relationship with time right, and they're going to have hard boundaries, and then they push it all down to their next level of leaders, and then now all of their leaders are overwhelmed. But those leaders need to run the exact same process. All of us, we will all win when we are operating, all of us are operating at our highest sustainable pace. The company will get the maximum results that they can sustain for the long haul. But every single individual of the organization needs to be treating their time like cash. It doesn't work if you get to the next layer down and suddenly they're all treating it like bread. And they start burning out. Like burnout is expensive. If you lose an employee, you're looking at 1.5 to 2 times their wages just to replace them and get them retrained. I mean, it is illogical for us to run our businesses in a way that burns out our people. And so often what happens is we swing to the side of self-care. And people will say things like, hey, no stress 2026, I'm working on me right now. And they swing so far to the other side where they're not productive. And so for me,
it's that pendulum. You got to make sure you keep it.
Yeah, it's that, again, our language in TimeBoss is highest sustainable pace. We want to find where we can get maximum results with an experience of life that we can maintain. It's like a distance runner running a marathon. Distance runners know they can't sprint. If they sprint, they will be done 500 feet in, they'll be doubled over. And distance runners don't want to walk. That's boring. That's not a game that they want to play. Right. A distance runner has figured out the maximum speed that they can run to maintain pace and actually finish that race, to get the best time possible. And the argument I make with businesses I work with is we are all marathon runners. We're not sprinters. We need to stop acting like we're sprinters where we sprint to one side and burn out, swing to the other side, experience speed, spring to the other side and burn out. I mean, what are we doing? Why are we operating this way? I think rationally finding that middle approach, that high sustainable pace, is just the most rational way to run a business in my opinion.
That just sounds like emotional chaos or emotional tragedy with back and forth. It'd be terrible.
And 76% of knowledge workers this year are going to experience that. It's like I said, Chris, we lack a common knowledge of time. We don't understand in this modern environment where our digital tools can follow us all day long, where we could work 24/7 if we let it. We don't have a way to think about infinity, and it cooks our brain. And so we have to do the work. We are the ones that have to create the boundaries and say, this is how much of my life I'm willing to give to work. And once I make that decision, how do I maximize that time to get the results I want? And then how do I figure out what to do with all the other stuff that doesn't fit? That is the play for the modern knowledge worker if they don't want to just constantly burn out.
Well, I was about to have one more question, but now I got two because we're going TimeBoss. Is it more of not more? Obviously, TimeBoss is a system, a process, a way of thinking. Is it digital as well? I mean, did you take that? You're obviously getting the book. Are you taking it to where it's easy to implement? I guess is my
Oh,
question.
yeah, very simple to implement. Yeah, so the reason why we are not a digital tool is
Mm-hmm.
because we work with teams and corporate teams in particular where they already have tools. And the number one reason why digital transformation fails is because people are not willing to adopt the new tools that get introduced to them.
Oh, it's
And
just
so
more. That's why I like WhatsApp. It's okay. And but people say use Slack. Well, hell, it's just one more way to communicate, and it's
exactly
too many
right.
things. I don't want all that stuff.
So people have a fallacy that they think I just need another app and that'll solve it. And that's not
Lord
true.
have mercy. No.
It's the way that we think about time and our approach to time that changes things. So what we do is we come in with teams,
Mm-hmm.
and those tools I mentioned, the backlog, the calendar, and the parking lot, we map those into that team's environment. So in a Microsoft environment, your backlog might become Microsoft To Do or a Microsoft Planner board. In a Google environment, it might become Google Tasks, or if you're already using Asana, it might be Asana.
Something they're already using that they're accustomed to.
Exactly.
You're just trying to
make
it more efficient, basically. It sounds like
you're exactly right. It's how do I think about this? And once people think rightly about time,
Mm-hmm.
it changes their approach to time. Once they understand that their time is cash, not credit, and their calendar becomes their to-do list, it changes their approach to time. And so our goal, what we're trying to do when we come to a team is we're just trying to shift the way they think about time, and that become the new operating norm in the culture, where the next time you hire the next employee, they learn TimeBoss by osmosis, because this is simply how we run as a company. And that's when your results truly go through the roof. We haven't really talked about results, Chris, but my thesis has been peace is a rational way to approach your time. As we increase our peace, most people are so overwhelmed, they need peace. And as we increase our peace, the numbers are staggering. People will see a 30% jump in productivity. They'll perceptively feel like they get 4 hours back in a week. But as a function of peace, because they are so mentally overloaded, it is killing their ability to be effective. And so we are just trying to help people operate in that pocket, again, high sustainable pace, where they are getting both the progress they want with an experience of peace. That's what we're after.
And when we close up, I'm going to say, find Andrew's information down in the show notes below, link it, contact him, all this good stuff. But people are going to say, well, I'm too busy for that. I don't have enough time. So what's the one thing, a simple thing somebody could do today or this week to help, get that first step, so they can establish a little bit of time to say, ooh, maybe I need to click this link and talk to Andrew about how I need to change my time and also with the team. Is there something they can do easily?
I think the one thing I would encourage people to do is to treat their calendar like their to-do list. So start at anything you said yes to, start visualizing on your calendar when you're going to actually get that done. And I think that helps reduce people's stress incrementally and increase their peace. That's the first move I would make. The one thing I would say too in this entire conversation, Chris, is I think in our life, one of two things is going to happen. We're either going to get the life that we choose, or we're going to get the life that we tolerate. And most people listening to this are probably just tolerating what comes at them. They're taking what's in their inbox. They're taking what comes through the door. They're no longer a cause in the matter, where they're saying, man, in light of my goals and values, what do I actually need to prioritize this week? And so my encouragement for that person that feels like I don't have enough time is you would just make a decision. Do I want the life that I'm going to choose, or the life I'm going to tolerate? And I think you want the life you're going to choose. And if that's true, I would encourage you to take that first step. Treat your calendar like your to-do list. If you want to take an additional step, I'm happy to connect. But that, I think people need to really take stock at truly how short their life is. And it is moving very quickly. And they're either going to get the life they choose or the life they tolerate.
Well, it sounds like that's a great way to end up the episode. And our time is gone as far as what we've set aside for today. Andrew, I do appreciate your time. Is the best way to get hold of you through a website or LinkedIn or something like that?
Website, LinkedIn are great. If anyone's interested in content, we've got a free 75-minute masterclass, introduces the entire framework start to finish. And so if they want to dig in on a weekend, a Saturday morning, watch a 75-minute class. You can watch it on 2 times speed if you only got 45 minutes. And
is that on YouTube as well, or just on your website?
They can get via our website, but it's also on YouTube as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, all the information will be down in below. Click on the YouTube, click on the website. Obviously, if you want to talk and chat, go to LinkedIn if you want. This is Chris G. Andrew, thank you very much for your time today. It's very valuable, as we all know. So,
thanks,
all
Chris.
right.
Good to be with you.
God be with you guys till we meet again. Chris G., Hard Hat CEO. Bye-bye.